Are you ready to take your power back? In this video, Fahd and I, Agile coaches, will share the power of great questions. We will teach you how to use them and give you a few examples.
Yeah, and the power of this is that this applies in every context. It's not just in a Teams meeting, personal or work related, but also especially where you're in a boardroom where you have different stakeholders of different levels as well. And the other thing we want to highlight is in this world where we're using AI to ask questions to help it do a task for us, it's even more important to be able to form good questions, both in conversation, but also with AI and chatbots.
And so we're going to talk about what the impact of using effective questions will give you. And I want to share a story. I was a BA and fairly new at the job and felt really nervous about going into these highly charged meetings where stakeholders were asking for requirements. They were all senior to me. And the person at this IAB, a keynote speaker, said, the person in the room is actually, the one who's asking the questions is actually the one with the power.
Yeah.
So as a BA, asking really good questions about discovering requirements makes you the powerful one. Think about it. If you're going for a job interview, who's the one with the power in the room? The hiring manager. They're the ones asking you the questions, and you're the person hoping to answer them. So questions will encourage people to get to know each other, get to know the problem, and discover often overlooked issues because you're asking great questions.
Yeah, and it's especially useful for conflict resolution because sometimes we're at a loss at what to ask, what to say when there is apparent conflict. And coming up with the right parameters of the question is just as important in making sure that we actually are not adding to the conflict, that we're helping it progress to a more productive place. And one of the most effective tips we can give you is to frame your question in an open-ended way. So they cannot be answered with yes or no. So think about what, who, how, when, where. Sometimes we think about why as a open-ended question, and it is by definition, but it can trigger a defensive response and it can come across as being critical of somebody, not in a good way. So you can get to the essence of why simply by asking, walk me through, or tell me more about XYZ, whatever the situation is, or help me understand your point of view. What led into this decision? So you now converted a why into a what question. And that can be very powerful with diffusing and trying to reduce the defensive response.
Well, let's explore some more examples.
So the first question in our examples are, what problem are we trying to solve? And this helps you specifically when you're starting something new, where you're starting the conversation about a specific topic or a project or a planning discussion, etc., where their possibilities are kind of wide, right? And so this helps the possibilities at least start to narrow down by understanding the real purpose. What this does is refocuses. So sometimes this question is not just good in the initiation steps, but really good when you feel or when there's a sense in the room that the conversation is deviating from the main purpose of the day or of the moment.
And in fact, sometimes when you're in a conversation of what problem you're trying to solve, there are people in the room who are going to say, oh, it's this, for sure. Okay, let's just go to problem solution. Let's solve the problem right away. And there's often, especially in these days, a real impetus to act right away without fully understanding everything. So another great question to use is, what's missing from this conversation? It allows space for more diverse thinking, more options on the table, thinking about people who might not be in the room, who weren't invited or who just aren't available at the moment. And so it leverages the people who are in the room to think about beyond the initial assumption, the initial idea they have, and think about what's missing.
Yeah, absolutely. And to the point about what's missing, you also want to understand the cost of inaction, the cost of not doing something. So when you have a list of things now, you've a list of options, let's say, that you've come up and you're analyzing them, to eliminate or to evaluate the cost of not taking action not only brings a sense of urgency and potential prioritization into the conversation, but also may expose some risks that you may not have seen, and it prompts other people to think critically.
And sometimes you see people afraid of making a decision, and so the conversation may just go round and round and churn. When you ask a question like this, what's the cost of not doing this now? It gets people realizing, oh, let's just try something. Let's maybe experiment with something, as an example.
Yeah, absolutely. Another way to ask about goals is this question right here.
And it ties again to the previous one and saying, what's the cost of not doing something? So I don't know how many times you've been on a project where it just seems to go on forever. They haven't released their first release yet. They're still in sprint 0. So we say, what's the simplest version we can deliver first? And as a product manager, you may have this situation a lot. We have a lot of stakeholders to please, and they all want their priority number ones, and everything's a priority number one. If you ask a question like, what's the simplest version we could deliver first? It encourages that lean thinking and encourages them to start with something and what's possible.
Yeah, and when you get to what can you deliver first, it's good to outline the expectations and understand what's actually possible here, what can make us successful, to learn from this first attempt, to understand how do we measure ourselves and report back to others. The others could be yourself, the others could be stakeholders, could be your own team members, or other departments you have to collaborate with. And so the other question to ask there is, what does success look like, and how will we measure it? And you can have different answers to this in different stages of not only your project, but in different stages of maturity in the work you're doing. This helps with setting goals and KPIs, obviously, but it also prompts other people to think about clear, measurable outcomes. You can use things like SMART goals or OKRs, objectives and key results, to help start to answer this question. And it encourages the conversation about why we're doing this in the first place. It reinforces the last couple of answers to the last couple of questions. So this is one building on to the conversation or to the plan.
And to take this one a step even beyond that, Fahd, I was thinking also you could ask that question as a new team. What does success look like for the team? What would make me want to stay working with this team forever? So you can actually have soft outcomes, in other words, like human outcomes, as well as part of that question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, we've been talking about things to try to drive people forward, to commit to delivering, to commit to an experiment, to commit to a set of priorities. And that is often what happens with being driven to act. And sometimes there's risks in acting too soon. So another great question to just check for that is, if we pause for 10 seconds, what would we notice? And I remember a story of when I was learning to be a Scrum Master. In the Scrum Master training, we had to do this little project through iterations, through sprints, of making a comic book. And we had things that we had to use scissors and tape, and somebody had to draw. And I didn't know how to draw, and I didn't have access to the one pair of scissors. So I was idle. I was sitting there doing nothing. And I felt terrible. But it gave me the chance to pause and observe the system, observe what was going on in the team. And when we had that retrospective, I had a time to notice something and suggest an improvement for the next sprint. So pausing for 10 seconds and asking the group to pause will help possibly explore new ideas or uncover risks that may not have been uncovered with them.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about this question, and is also a great question to help diffuse perhaps a highly emotional moment or part of the conversation. And it takes courage to do this, right? It takes courage to be able to ask this question in the middle of, let's say, a heated discussion, or one that has too many points of views and you want to kind of pause for a second. So this takes practice. And what we can equip you with today is a couple of things you can keep in mind to avoid, right? The first one is leading questions that suggest answers. If you watch any legal show ever, they say when a lawyer is asking leading questions, mean the answer is implied and they're looking for the witness on the stand to be able to go a certain way. So you want to avoid asking leading question. Keep your point of view curious is a key part of this practice. The second one is not allowing enough time for responses. Mara and I have this great acronym that we share with each other all the time. It's a common one. It's called WAIT, W-A-I-T. Why am I talking? And it's good to ask the question and let the thought process simmer, let the critical thinking happen. One of my other favorite questions about pausing is any allergic reactions. When I ask that question, are any allergic reactions to this idea? I just wait, let the room kind of feel uncomfortable. And then Mara has this great trick for facilitators that both of us use is we wait until it's uncomfortable and then count to 10 before we say anything. It means you're letting not only people process information, but also you are giving them time to think about how to articulate their response. So not allowing enough time to give responses is a key mistake.
And this is even more important when you're virtual because maybe somebody's trying to find the unmute button.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
If you interrupt with the follow-up question, they may not answer and they just back away.
Totally. The third one is something that takes time to develop, but I'd invite you to keep thinking about how you want to build this skill, which is ignoring nonverbal cues and a feedback that you're supposed to be getting in the room that people aren't directly giving you, but they're giving you through body language, through tone, through facial expression, etc. And so this is a key one to kind of practice. But the way I like to say it is if you ignore the cues in the room, you won't be equipped to find the right question that serves the room, that serves the conversation in the moment. So ignoring nonverbal cues can actually hinder the conversation. Again, this takes practice, this takes time, and this one especially takes a lot of attention and self-reflection in the moment. To that effect, Mara has a great story she'd like to share with you.
So I think I mentioned earlier that I've been on a few projects that went way over budget, went way over time, didn't deliver their first release when it was expected. And here's a project that really happened. It was a website that was being redesigned and people thought, why is it taking so long? And we were finally ready to release. We're all excited about it, and there's a classic go-no-go decision meeting. And some important stakeholder said, wait a second, we can't go live now because there's this thing missing, or I need this extra feature. And we asked the question, we said, what would you rather not release, and who knows how long further delay is going to be? We haven't estimated how long the further delay is. Or just launch the new website now and address that feature request later. And what would happen if we just launched it now? Can you live with it and have a fast follow? Have that sort of hard, that was almost a yes or no question, but what would happen if we launch it? Is it that critical that the launch is not worth doing? And sure enough, they decided to wait till later and relaunch their website release, and it was great.
Absolutely. You delivered you're focused on what's valuable. All this work we've done is still valuable, not only for us as an organization, more importantly for the customer. They can still use this solution that you created. So why not put it in their hands, get feedback, make it better as you go, and leave the risks that are still outstanding there. It takes a lot of courage to ask that question, Mara.
And Fahd's got a great story as well, and it was a tough one because he was in the room with a lot of powerful executives.
Yeah, so I was leading a team of digital technology, and we were tasked with two projects. One of them was around decommissioning an old piece of software infrastructure, and the other one was around moving to a newer or more internally hosted solution because it was expensive to use that solution before. So we had these two projects that I kind of inherently knew, okay, this is the difference is a cost saving versus risk to the organization. And there had been incidents of the older piece of architecture or solution that was not updated and was out of support, that there had been already some sort of breaches through that. So when we had a steering committee meeting, one of the questions I planned to ask in the meeting to get to this sense of what is more important than the other, because we had one team that was tasked to do both these projects. And like in many situations, you said, do both of them now. They're both priority number one. And that was not possible for us just purely because of availability of the people that had to do the work. but also the complexity that both of these projects kind of had in them. So the question I asked in the moment was, how would you like to prioritize between these two? What is more critical to you to get addressed? And there were all these different executives, VPs in that meeting, from network, from cybersecurity, from a technical enterprise architecture, from data, etc., that were present. So we had the right set of people to think about this problem and be able to give a good answer. I happen to be, let's say, lucky or not, but it happened to be a powerful question in that moment, because the VP of network immediately spoke up and said, no, definitely our risk exposure is more critical for us to solve than cost savings this year. So that was immediately, it shifted the conversation to doing one before the other. And we were able to start the second one as we had gotten to enough information and started building a solution. We were able to at least start analyzing the second one as we went. So it worked out really well just by simply having the courage to ask that question. And I'm glad I did, because from then on, I became more and more comfortable in boardrooms or in steering committee meetings, etc.
Yeah, so practicing is really important. So
Yes.
I feel uncomfortable at first, especially that silence after you ask it.
Yeah.
So practicing is very important.
To that effect, we want you to practice. So the best way to learn and master this is to actually do it. So we have a little bit of homework for you, and we'd love for you to share your experience in the comments after the video, or after you've done it. Please come back. Number one, we'd like you to choose a question to use in a meeting. So think about a current situation you're in, and a great question that would help the whole situation, not just the meeting. But think about what is a good time for you to ask that question in a meeting, and take note of what triggered you to ask that question. What cue did you get that said, "Ooh, this is a good time. I'm going to ask this question now." And we'd really love to hear from you on this, to share your experience with us in the comments.
We'll remind you that what you're doing by asking powerful questions is you're elevating your leadership. By asking those questions, you're uncovering hidden risks and assumptions. You're getting diversity of opinion to get better problem solving, alignment across teams and stakeholders, and you're shifting power dynamics in your favor, but also in favor of the solution that your group needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And we would love to hear from you on how we can serve you best. This is what Mara and I do day in and day out with our clients, with organizations and teams we work with. We provide both coaching and facilitation services of these kinds. And this is not an exhaustive list. If there's something custom and specific you need, we're happy to come and have a conversation with you and see how we can design something that works for you in your context, either personally or for your team and organization.
We love collaborating. We've enjoyed collaborating on this video. We love collaborating with you. We'd love to hear from you anytime. Please reach out.
Yeah, and leave in the comments what other topics you'd like us to cover that could help you get some more kind of ownership and power where you may be lacking it in terms of position of authority or with your team. So thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.